Wow, okay. Sheik GUMI urges Nigerian government to copy ex-President Jonathan's model to end banditry and kidnapping. An Islamic leader, Sheikh Ahmad GUMI, has blamed the rising spate of banditry, kidnapping, and insecurity nationwide on the failure of governments at all levels to fund the education sector in line with the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization (UNESCO). GUMI, however, challenged the federal government to embrace former President Jonathan Goodluck's approach to security challenges by educating young Fulanis that resorted to criminalities due to poverty and unemployment. GUMI made this recommendation at a virtual policy dialogue by the Nigerian Global Affairs Council (NIGAC), a digital media-driven and evidence-based think tank focusing on governance and public policy. NIGAC's National Virtual Policy Dialogue affords Nigerians and its leaders the opportunity to examine critical issues affecting national development. During the dialogue, Islamic leader urged Nigeria to see security challenges as a social problem which, according to him, could not be solved by military prowess. He explained that it was time for sociologists, criminologists, and psychologists in the country to come together and understand how to resolve the menace. He, however, attributed insecurity in the country to poor funding of education sector in breach of the 26% budget allocation of the UNESCO recommended for every country. But then you don't necessarily have to follow what United Nations is saying, to be honest. He also said Nigeria is a target of many different international investment interest groups. For us who have been in the military, we go to the bush, we do exercises in the bush, we will never get attacked. In fact, you don't even fear Fulani men. Well, to be honest, he says that Nigeria is a target of many different international interest groups. Well, unfortunately, it's not the interest groups is not showing. The interest groups that are international, that are interested in Nigeria, is United Nations and other charity groups that are really here to benefit from the lack of structure of the country. If we're going to be very honest, that's my opinion. I don't have facts to prove that, but it's just my opinion. Because to be honest, when it comes to international relations and relations that actually matter, when it comes to, let's say, tourism, when it comes to investment, with the laws and how our country goes, our country is not even industrialized. We literally have a monopoly. For example, let's say Dangote, they do sugar, they do cement, they do every single thing. And so it's like, if you have monopolies like that, when we don't, even in our domestic markets, we don't even have a lot of competition, let alone international interest. It doesn't make sense. So that's highly untrue. So Ahmad Gumi is asked, so what has suddenly changed? These are the questions I think sociologists, criminologists, and psychologists should all put their heads together and see a way out. But it is not by force that we can subdue these people. I do not see that. On how to solve the problem, the cleric advocated the need to improve funding in the education sector of the country. The standard by the United Nations is that education should have about 15 to 20% of the budget. In Nigeria, it is about 9 to 10%. We are not spending much on education and human capital development at large. We have entirely forgotten the Human Development Index, HDI. That is exactly what we are suffering from. Well, the HDI, one can argue that is a more rounded way of indicating how developed a country is, how economically developed that they are, going beyond just, let's say, GDP or gross national income. It goes into sectors like, let's say, health, education, security, and other things. So obviously it's a more well-rounded indicator of how developed an economy is or a country is. And I guess he sort of has a point there, but still he's driving at just following what the United Nations say every single time, and it's just, life doesn't really work like that. This kidnapping and banditry you see is committed by people who are stark illiterate. They are not educated at all. Most of them have never been to schools. They know nothing. They are always on drugs. That is stereotypical. The first thing we need to debunk is that education is only when you go to school. You can have informal learning. Education also comes in how enlightened, how aware of the environment you are, the current affairs of, we need to, yes, again, education only matters, to be honest, when you have like a university degree and upwards, to be honest. That below, speaking and writing in the language, I guess, is what you can call education and, literacy, to be honest. But talking about how that, because there are people in schools that are still doing drugs, there are people in schools that are still going to enter into crimes and all that. I guess statistically, if you look at the rates, the numbers are obviously less than, people who are not in school. But the fact just remains that, if you say education, the education is also low in the south. It's not the best as well, but you can't find a southerner trying to join Boko Haram because of one kind of straight convincing from Boko Haram. You get what I mean? So again, you have to look at the level of awareness in that region. And there are also many, and there are so many in numbers. If you want to cure it, you have to solve it as a social problem, not as a military problem. The military cannot solve it, the Islamic leader explained. I think that, again, is factual as well. I think that's an aspect of how the country is being run, in which it's not necessarily clear to the leaders that, we've actually passed that military era, and it's just not working. Somebody says, Gumi therefore urged the administration of President Buhari to embrace former President Goodluck Jonathan's approach to security challenges, and the Islamic leader noted that the federal government should accept Jonathan's approach. Jonathan's principle is the only solution. Let's educate these Fulani people, because without education, we are wasting our time. That is true. But again, when it comes to just the basics, or not basics, but just in defense alone, it doesn't make sense. It shows that the priority of the government is not even to solve the problem, the security problem. Why? I say this because for something would literally happen in the north, like people can literally die, there's a bombing, there's an attack, 300 people are kidnapped, yet the government will show so much energy in investing and deploying the army to go and look for ASN members and attack them. You see why it is very different. The same energy is not used for Motekun. And it's like, okay, why is it that? Why is it so? Why is it so? The same energy is not given to Amotekun. And obviously right now we know that the process and the wanting for the Yoruba Republic secessionism and all that is just, the conversation just starting with right now. But still, like, all Biafrans or ESN, all they have to do is breathe. Even their own indigenes that are in leadership positions will work against them. That, to me, is the highest form of betrayal, and it just, in simple terms, does not make sense. So yeah, it is what it is at this point. It's highly embarrassing, but there's some aspects that Sheik Gumi sort of gets right, and some he doesn't. You might not like him, but some things he says are factual. But at the end of the day, his patterns and the way he negotiates with banditry and all that, it doesn't make sense, and you can disagree with that. Put what you think about this in the comment section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.